From my initial reading of Out Out by Robin Frost, I found that there were areas where I could fill in details omitted from the poem. I wrote the police report to show the cause of death and gave primary evidence of what happened, dates, names, etc. The closing speech is used to persuade the reader of the events leading to the death from Husqvarna's perspective. Finally, the diary entry is used to show the despair of Mrs. George. The police report is written to reflect the time period of when the poem was composed in 1917. The report sets the tone for the rest of the text that I composed. The location, Hollis, New Hampshire, was chosen because this is where Robert Frost published this poem. The purpose of the police report is to give a vague description of the tragic death of Tom George. This vague description is then later expanded upon in the closing speech. The closing speech on the defendant's counsel has been sequenced just as it would have been in 1917. The main purpose of the closing speech was to point the finger of blame at Mrs. George and give an overview of the investigation into Tom's death. Tom's mother was referred to as Mrs. George because in the time of the poem it was impolite to call a woman by her first name. I purposely didn't incorporate the jury's final decision into this component of the speech, as I want to leave this part for the diary entry. Rhetorical questions were used in speech. Who was supervising the child? This is directed at the jury to question why some of the decisions were made. Concise wording is used to catch the jury's attention. The diary entry communicates the despair of Mrs. George. It is purposely written straight after the court hearing because I wanted the diary entry to be written following the investigations and subsequent stress had been dealt with. This enabled the diary to be truly written from the heart with no other factors weighing her down. Mrs. George is in despair. This is evident through the numerous rhetorical questions made by her. This is done to show her thought process and to question the reader about her decisions. In the first line, bitter cold, colder than a winter's day, yet so warm, is a use of juxtaposition to show how cold she feels inside to compare how hot the temperature is. The reason Tom was cutting wood was because back in 1970 there was only wood fires and this was the only way you could cook even on hot days. Similes are used to display what she's going through. I have used this because as it gives the reader an insight to the enormity of this situation Mrs. George is struggling to go through. Extensive types of repetitions are used in the entry, including anaphora and andopolysis. They are used to imply her actions she took that led to Tom's death. Personification is used to describe the cricket singing. This is used to show the peace amongst her angst.